You're welcome to yet another segment of today's teaching. My name remains Esther. So I'm going to take you on government, and then today we're going to discuss federalism. Federalism. And I know you're somehow familiar with this topic because we discussed it partially in SS1. And then under this federalism, we're going to discuss I'm going to give you the brief origin of federalism. And then the emergence of federalism in Nigeria. And then I'll also give you some factors that necessitated the formation of federalism in Nigeria. Then by the end of this lesson, you, the student at home, is expected to clearly define federalism. Then after that, you're also expected to give a brief origin of federalism in Nigeria, especially because we're using Nigeria as a case study because we're in Nigeria. And then you're also expected to explain the emergence of federalism in Nigeria and then mention at least 4, 5, 6 factors that necessitated the formation of federalism in Nigeria. Now, what is federalism? Now, this is a political arrangement where powers are shared between the levels of government. Now, when I'm talking about the levels of government, I'm talking about the federal, the state, and the local governments. Let me come again. I said federalism can be defined as a political arrangement where powers are shared between or among the levels of government. Now, the levels of government are 1, the federal, the state, and the local government. Like in Nigeria, we're practicing federalism, and that is why you can find that power comes from the federal, it goes down to the state, and down to the local government. It is a 3 tiers of government. Then before we forge ahead, I would like to write down the definition of federalism on the board so that you can easily refer to that when you're reading. Federalism is a political arrangement where power or political power is shared among the 3 tiers or levels of government. Now, tiers and levels are the same. I've been trying to make this correction. Tiers and levels are the same, then organs and arms is the same. You cannot say, maybe for instance, you want to define federalism and you say organs, I'll fail you. So what you're supposed to write here is what? Either tiers or you write what? Levels. Then if you're talking about the organs or arms of government, you're talking about what? The legislature, judiciary, and what? Executive. These are the what? Organs of government. So there are 2 different things altogether. Then if you're asked to define federalism, this is what you mention. Federalism is a political arrangement where power, political power, is shared among the 3 tiers or levels of government. Okay? Then I want to give you a brief, before I forget, now Nigeria became a federation of 3 states in 3 regions. Then there was nothing like states. So Nigeria became a federation of 3 regions in 1954. Then USA is a federation of what? 52 states. Then I want to give you a brief origin of federalism in Nigeria. I said we are using Nigeria as a case study because we are in Nigeria. Had it been we are in another country, we also use that as a case study. Now, the origin of federalism in Nigeria could be traced back to the division of the country then in 1939 by Bernard Bodilon. Then Nigeria was divided into 3 by Bernard Bodilon in 1939. Now, he divided the country into Eastern, Western, and Northern province. Now, the origin of federalism can be traced back to the division of the country into 3 provinces. I did not say 3 regions, but I said what? 3 provinces. Now the first was the eastern, the second western, and the third northern. And it was divided by a man called Bernard Bodilon in the year 1939. Now, before Bernard Bodilon left office, he recommended that province should be replaced with what? Region. That province should be what? Replaced with region. And that was why immediately Richard came in 1946. He introduced what? Regionalism. So now, instead of saying eastern, western, northern province, we started saying what? Eastern, western, northern, and what? Region, instead of what? Province. Now, the same Richard introduced a federal structure in Nigeria. And that is why, like in the past WAEC questions, they were asked the first person that introduced federalism in Nigeria. Some were saying it was McPherson, some were saying Bernard Bodilon, and some were saying Richard. So Richard was the person that introduced a federal structure in Nigeria. Then, when McPherson came up in 1953, he introduced the House of Reps, and he gave them the power to make laws in each of their area of what? Jurisdiction. Now, he gave them power to make laws both in the central and in the regional level. Then finally, in 1954, 2 tiers was created. Remember I said we have 3 tiers now, the federal, state, and what? Local government. But then in 1954, what was created there was just 2 tiers of government. The federal and what? The regional. Let me not say state. The federal and what? The regional tiers of government. And then, remember I told you that the origin of federalism can be traced back to Bernard Bodilon, who created the 3 provinces then, which was what? The eastern, the western, and northern provinces. So this is just a brief origin of federalism in Nigeria. Now, before I forge ahead, let me write this down before you forget. It can be traced back to the division of the country into 3 provinces: the northern, the eastern, and the western what? Provinces. Then in 1939, by Bernard Bodilon. Nigeria into 3 provinces. That's Bernard Bodilon. The northern, the eastern, and the western region. He divided it in 1939. Now let us see the emergence of federalism in Nigeria. The emergence of federalism in Nigeria, this can be traced back to 1914. I know everybody there knows what, can remember what happened in 1914. That was when Lord Lugard, the father of indirect rule, amalgamated the northern and the southern protectorate. Then finally, through federalism emerged in 1954. Don't forget that, in case you see it in your exam or something. Even in case they ask you when true federalism came up, you tell them that it was discovered, it came up in 1954. But some will say it came up in 1939 because Bernard Bodilon divided the country into 3. And some will say it was in 1946 because Richard introduced a federal structure and again regionalism. And then some will say it was in 1953 because McPherson introduced what? The House of Reps. He created the House of what? Reps. And he gave them the power to do what? To make laws. But finally, I say that true federalism came up in 1954. Okay? Now let us see factors that necessitated the formation of federalism in Nigeria. Now Nigeria adopted this federal system of government because of some reasons. Nigeria cannot adopt a unitary government. Why? Because we are large. And because of that, there is no way Nigeria will do what? Adopt a unitary government. Now, a unitary government is that type of government where power is centered on the central government. There is nothing like division of power among the levels of government. But in the federal system, there is what? Division of power among the levels of government. Now, some of the reasons that make the country to adopt federalism or a federal system of government are as follows. One, size of the country. That's the first thing you have to consider, size of the country. Then two, cultural diversity. Cultural diversity. Then three, bringing the government at the grassroots level. We have so many of them, and I'm just, because of time, I'll pick just a few of them. Then the last one is different stages of development. Let me write it here. Formation of federalism, or a federal system of government. One is size of the country, two, cultural diversity, and then three, bringing governments to the grassroots. Now, like I said earlier on, Nigeria cannot adopt a unitary government. Why? Because it is too large for that kind of government. So that was why Nigeria adopted a federal system of government, so that laws can get to people even at the grassroots. For instance, we have local governments, which is a grassroots government. So Nigeria adopted this system so that everybody will feel the impact of government. Then the second one is cultural what? Diversity. We have so many ethnic groups in Nigeria. We have about 250 ethnic groups, or thereabouts, or 300 and something ethnic groups in Nigeria. So adopting a unitary government cannot work in Nigeria because of this. We have diverse cultures, we have so many ethnic groups. So it is only a federal system of government that can work in Nigeria, or work well in Nigeria. Then bringing government to the grassroots. Remember I told you that in the other system of government, power is only centered in the central government. But here, power is what? Is divided. We now have a local government. And local government is what? Government at the grassroots. Now, every policy of the government gets down to the people, even at the grassroots level. Okay. If you have any question based on what we have discussed so far, you can send it to this platform. But before I end the lesson today, I'd like to go back again to what we discussed. I said the topic for today is what? Federalism. And then we said federalism is a political arrangement where power or political power is shared among the 3 tiers or levels of government. I remember what I said about tiers and levels. I said you cannot replace tiers or levels with organs or arms. These are 2 different things altogether. If you write it there, the examiner will fail you. And then, under the origin of federalism in Nigeria, we said we traced it back to the division of the country into 3 provinces, which is the northern, the eastern, and the western province in 1939 by Bernard Bodilon. Then when you go back, you begin to see other ones. And then finally, through federalism came up in 1954, in case you see that question in your exams. Through federalism came up in 1954. The factors that necessitated the adoption or formation of federalism in Nigeria. I said 1, size of the country, 2, cultural diversity, and then 3, bringing government to the grassroots. Thank you very much.